Hi, this is Steve, VE6WZ. I had made a video a number of years ago on my remote station here, and I thought I should update that. There's been a few changes. Here on a frosty October 10th day, it's kind of warming up though. It's only about -9 right now. Boy, we get snow early here. This is our second snowfall already, and it's, as I say, only the early October. I'm standing here at the top of my location. The QTH here is on the top of a hill, about 300 feet above the surrounding terrain in pretty much all directions, and it's predominantly farmland in the surrounding area. Except here, where I have the location, it's entirely trees, entirely treed. The actual QTH that we own here is only 10 acres, but surrounding the 10 acres is a full quarter section of land owned by a very friendly neighbor who's allowed me to use the treed area to run my beverages. So even though I've only got 10 acres here, it allows me to expand beyond that to provide access for beverage locations. As I say, it was all treed here, and we needed to clear a road, so we brought a bulldozer in, and after harvesting the trees, cleared a spot for the road here, and also brought power in here. We have a hydro service, a power service, which is above ground to here, and then trenched from here underground to the shack, which I'll show you in a moment. So here at VE6WZ, I'm kind of marooned or otherwise stuck on the low bands. It's kind of been my passion. So kind of more of a focus on 160 meters and maybe 80 meters. If I'm above 40 meters, that's kind of unusual. I'm just panning across another area which I cleared subsequent to the last video I made, and this is where I have located my 9-circle receive array. And I've got another video on that, which I encourage you to look at if you're interested in that. It's a big part of my receive system for 160 meters. And as I say, out in the bush in the surrounding area, I have quite a number of I have all 8 compass directions covered by beverages ranging in length from 1,000 feet to maybe 800 feet, and some phased beverage pairs as well. The actual location where the radio equipment is housed in the trailer here is fenced in it's about 140 feet, 150 feet square, fenced in area. And I decided to include, as I say, a 6-foot chain link fence with barbed wire on top to, discourage any ingress, anyone thinking they might want to climb in here and climb my tower. I've included some signage to discourage that as well, and 2 10-foot gates, so I got a good 20-foot gate entrance. The gravel, the pad, we cleared all of the topsoil and took it down to the clay, and then put gravel down, which is covering the ground radial system, which extends throughout the entire pad area here, since I shunt feed my tower on 160 meters. The radio equipment is housed in this trailer. We call it a skid mount trailer. I say we, it's a very typical type trailer used for housing construction services and oil and gas field equipment and service personnel. It's a 24 feet long, 10 feet wide trailer. It's air conditioned and of course electric heated. I have 2 towers. This one here is just a little shorty. It's a little 48-foot tower. I don't really use it for any kind of radio. There's no antennas on it. What I do have are a couple of wind gauges. One wind gauge will trigger an alarm in the event of a high wind gust, which will trigger the crank up motorized tower to bring it down in the case of a high wind gust. The other wind gauge, I just monitor the temperature and wind, and it's my weather station for the remote. Also up there is a little camera, a little security camera. I actually have 8 cameras here, so I can log into the station and just keep a visual eye on what's going on here at the station. Actually, I don't know if you can see it, there's also a little loop there, well, a 30-meter loop, which I used to use. I don't anymore. That used to be, I had that going to my SDR skimmer for skimmer spots being sent to RBN. I've relocated that loop now further out into the bush on a high tree, get a little bit away from the transmit location here. The tower is a US tower, HDX 589 MDPL crank-up tower. This is the same tower which I used at my home QTH in the city. And, I really love the tower, and I chose to bring it out here. I mean, I could have gone for a freestander, but as I'll explain later, it's, you know, with the crank up, I can crank this tower down, and using my man lift, which I'll show you in a minute, is you know, I can work on my antennas with no problem, no need to climb the tower. So, you know, at the very top is the OptiBeam, the OB59, I think it's called. It's a high band Yagi, 5-band Yagi, 20 and up, and as I say, I don't really use it a lot, but it's there in the event that I need it. And then below that, of course, is the on the long boom is the 80 and 40 meter 2-element Homebrew Yagi. The 40 meter 2-element Yagi is interlaced on the same boom with the 80 meter Yagi. And I've got a paper I wrote on that Homebrew Yagi, as well as a website describing how I built that, if you're interested. As I say, the tower is shunt fed for 160 meters. And it works together with a couple of parasitic elements. And I don't know if you can see there in the background, that's one of the two parasitic elements. It's made from 4-inch irrigation tubing. It can be tuned either as a reflector or a director to you know, accomplish two directions with the one parasitic. And as I say, I have a second parasitic to give me two more directions. I wrote a paper on that in terms of how that's built and all the details. So if you're interested, you know, I encourage you to have a look. I don't know if you can see the shunt arm here, the shunt arms. I'm going to just walk around the. They say the. I wrote a video on shunt feeding towers too. I made a video on how to shunt feed a tower and how I tuned this one. And you see I have two shunt arms to increase the bandwidth on the gamma wire. And I don't know if I can walk around here a little bit more, and maybe you can see the coax offset. A lot of discussion online about how to manage your coax on a crank up tower. All I could say is it is very much possible to manage your coax such that it'll never tangle. I mean, this tower goes up and down without me being here, and I've never ever had an issue. I've got a design such that the coax these little arms will rotate so that it can't snag or get caught on anything. As I say, the tower's motorized. I cover the motor. You'll notice. I pressed the button there. Tower's motorized, and I've got a cover over the motor here. I've done that because during the winter I've had problems with one of the threaded rods icing up. And so by covering it, it eliminates that problem, and I've had no problem since. So you can't quite see the motor drive. It's hidden behind there. The base of the tower, it's you know, it's pretty robust. It's 6 feet square and 9 feet deep. And that's as per the U.S. tower documentation and recommendations. I personally think it's overkill, but you know, that's what we did. Followed their lead on that. The tower base is fully grounded with 2-inch copper strap. I don't know if you can see it there. A lot of ice on it, but at all four corners there's a copper piece of copper pipe that goes the full 9-foot depth of the pad, and that's also electrically bonded to a 3/8-inch copper tubing, which goes all the way around the base of the tower, onto which is soldered all of the radials, which extend outward and encompass the full cleared area here, which represent the ground radial system for the tower. And of course that's bonded to the strap and then to the tower. So that's that represents the not only the DC ground for lightning protection, but also the RF ground for the tower. I'll walk around here and show you the distribution box. At the base of the tower here, I have a box, an enclosure, which now is predominantly being used as a distribution. Well, always has been, but its main purpose now is just to distribute the various control lines. As I say, my 80 meter and 40 meter Yagi, all it's band switched to cover the full 80 and 40 meter bands. It's a shortened Yagi, and therefore it's got narrow bandwidth. And anyway, a lot of relays that are driven with Cat5 that go to the top of the tower, and I distribute them here with this block, and there's a relay box there too to select the different feed lines to either the Yagis on the tower or the 160 meter antenna. This also used to be the shunt feed, the location for the shunt feed for the 160 meter tower, but it isn't anymore. I've moved that, and I just haven't yet removed the vacuum variable there. I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to yank that out of there. In fact, over here, this other box, this is actually now the shunt feed box for the 160 meter feed point. Shunt wire comes in there, and the parasitic array that I have, as I say, I've written a paper on it. I encourage you to look at it if you're interested. But the way I've tuned the array, I've tuned it to maximize gain. And when you do that, the modeling is very clear. You'll see that your bandwidth will crash and it'll become very narrow. And as a result, I've got a bank of ceramic doorknobs, which are vacuum relayed to allow me to move across the 160 meter band and maintain a good SWR. You'll also notice that there's two big air variables, vacuum variables rather, and that's because not only do I have a gamma cap, but I also have an omega cap here, which is required when I switch from Omni to the parasitic array. So that's the reason for that. Here's my little portable garage. This is really not much. It's just a canvas portable garage. It's pretty handy though, and it works quite well. This is where I house my man lift. As I say, this is super handy. I got this used auction. Equipment auction, and it's just a 34-foot high man lift. But man, I'll tell you, this is just great because for me, ham radio, the main part of the hobby for me, a big part of it is I love building antennas and working on things. So I just drive this out here right beside the tower, and I crank the tower down, and I have full access to the antennas, and you know, it makes it super fun and easy to work on the antennas without having to do any climbing. On the wall of the shack at the top there, you see it's air conditioned, so that in the winter, in the summer, you know, I keep the equipment room cool. A little halogen light there on the corner, that's a 500 watt halogen that I can activate remotely to inspect the tower when I'm not here. Okay, a little top there, you see I got a couple of little antennas there. The circular one is one internet provider. And then around here, that little pizza box is another LTE WISP provider, wireless internet service provider. That's the way I get my internet out here at the remote. And I'm fortunate I have access to two different providers, and I elected to get monthly accounts with both of them. You know, it's actually pretty affordable, and now that I have two accounts, you know, it provides both redundancy in case I have a problem with one of them, but you know, also you know, I can spread the bandwidth a bit, which is handy, because then you know, if I have an issue, you know, if I have any, you know, during peak demand times, I can select which provider provides a radio connection and another for other uses. So, gosh, I think that's about it. Oh yeah, no, here's the entry panel to the shack. All of the feed lines and coax are trenched, not only to the towers, but the coax is trenched all the way out into the bush where it goes to my beverages and antennas and whatnot. This is particularly ugly. I'm not proud of it, but to be honest with you, I'm betting a lot of you guys have had a similar issue where you know, you start out with good intentions to keep things nice and neat, and you know, then it grows and things are added, and the next thing you know, it's a bit of a runaway and a mess. But you know, the bottom line is it's still all properly connected, and what I've done here is again, with this copper panel, which is integrated into both the radial system and the DC ground, every control line, rotor cable, and everything is either MOV, lightning protected, or a gas discharge tube protected. You know, they got a little bank of gas discharge tubes here, which aids in lightning protection. And the coax lines, the beverages, or even my security cameras, I don't know if you can see here through here, but they all have gas discharge tubes on them. And the main coax, of course, for the transmit antennas on the RG6 have you know, like an alpha delta gas discharge tube type lightning arrestor as well. Anyway, there you go. That's the outside of the remote station. You know, I had also made an indoor tour video. Perhaps I'll do another one of those at some point. There's been a few changes inside the shack as well. Thanks for watching. Steve, VE6WZ.